So this is something like 9 or 10 days late. I have a time limit, so I won't go into detail about everything. But if you're curious, this video used to be about Warhammer, and then I had to pivot towards this movie instead, since Warhammer is too big. So I'm just gonna get right into it. I did not expect the Inquisition in Black Death 2010. Yeah. So Black Death is a 2010 medieval action horror film directed by Christopher Smith. It was initially going to be a wholly supernatural horror film, but this was changed when Smith took charge. This will be more relevant later. It is set in 14th century England while it is in the grips of the Black Death, hence the title. So this spoils the entire movie. Anyway. Plague ravages the Stavely Monastery, and Osmond the monk instructs his secret lover, Averill, to leave town and go into the woods where he was raised in order to escape the plague. After pleading with God, Osmond's prayer is seemingly answered with the arrival of the bishop's hired swords. Osmond volunteers to serve as their guide on the journey to a remote village, unaffected by the plague. All right, so I did not have room in the script for this. I was going to introduce each member of the party, but I'm just going to say their name. You can pause and read the blurb. I'm just going to say their name and like what they do. So Wolfstan, the soldier. Swire, also the soldier. Ivo, the mute. Mold, the ugly guy. Dallywag, the asshole. Griff, also a soldier. So Ulrich is the leader of the group and the bishop's envoy, quote unquote. It's unclear what that means, but it's implied that he's like a type of knight empowered to carry out inquisitorial duties, like interrogating people. And Osmond, the main character, he's a novitial monk from Stavely Monastery. So the mission. On the bishop's orders, the men are to investigate a village untouched by the plague. His instructions are to bring back a necromancer, although it's more likely that he's just mad his previous envoy disappeared in an area known for having bandits and he wants to save face. So anyway, to this end, the party travel with a portable torture contraption that can also transport an entire heretic. So now, the movie reveals an interesting detail in that there exists a divide between what the church believes causes the plague and what the rest think. To quote the beginning of the movie, the priests told us it was God's punishment. No, we knew the truth. This was not God's work, but devilry, witchcraft. So the problem here is that the witch trials actually began in the 15th century. Well, this movie takes place in the 14th. 15th century is when we see the Malus Maleficarum published. It's a manual on identifying witches and punishing them, which was rejected and outright condemned by the Inquisition. The gender typically associated with witchcraft also varied by location. It wasn't always female, which the book is what creates this image of the sort of like female evil witch. So people didn't blame witches for the Black Death. Despite this, the movie is actually pretty close to the truth, which is that many medieval Christians continued their long-standing tradition of blaming not witches, but Jewish people. There's more overlap there than what you might think. It becomes evident with the following scene, which is the attempted witch burning scene. So, the heretic murder wagon party stumbles into a crowd of angry peasants about to burn a woman for witchcraft. They blame her for the plague afflicting their village, accusing her of poisoning their well in a pact with the devil. So the act of well poisoning is actually an anti-Semitic myth that predates the Black Death, but it experiences a resurgence, with many outbreaks being attributed to Jews poisoning wells and other water sources. There's a point in the film where Dallywag remarks that a village once burned over 100 witches in one night, which, if you substituted witches for Jews, it wouldn't actually be that outlandish of a claim. The year the film takes place is also quite close to the Strasbourg massacre, which saw its entire Jewish community burned when the plague struck. and poison wells were obviously blamed. So, after depopulating the forest of bandits, the party finally reaches the village, where they're greeted with open arms. And this is where the second half of the film begins. Unsurprisingly, the villagers turn out to be heretics, though the film's depiction leans much closer to the Christian imagination of a devil worshipper instead of an actual heretic, in that they're explicitly anti-Christian, using spilled Christian blood in their rituals. Coincidentally, they also employed necromancy, although it's performed using drugs and alchemy to feign the raising of the dead. It's more a trick the necromancer uses to keep the villagers in line. Anyway, so heretics in history can be understood in terms of two broad categories. The first consists of Christians with religious beliefs that did not align with the orthodoxy. The second category of heretic consists of anti-clerical Christians that challenge the authority of the Orthodox Church. Many of these people would have just been considered good Christians prior to the invention of the crime of heresy by Pope Innocent III, which would lead to the Albigensian Crusade and the Inquisition. The takeaway here is that heretics are Christians, right? They don't worship Moloch or something. So now, the villagers are clearly not heretics in the historical sense. Confusingly, they're also referred to as pagans by Ulrich, although this doesn't seem right either. A pagan would not utter the phrase, "there is no God," which is a line spoken in the film. And they seem to believe in sorcery to some degree. So it'll make a lot more sense if we look at the original script, which envisioned a much more supernatural film with the antagonist Langiva being the devil, the literal devil, and the village being hell made manifest. This would mean the villagers would have been literal devil worshippers in the first draft. And immediately, you can see the movie starts to make a lot more sense. Smith obviously stripped out all of the supernatural elements from the devil worshippers, but they're still written as devil worshippers. So now, the quote-unquote devil worshipper, as understood by Christian imagination, also has roots in anti-Semitic myth, as Jews were accused and depicted as linked to the Antichrist and the devil. The film isn't subtle about these connections, as it also depicts an actual blood libel, which is a ritual murder recreation of the death of Jesus, which Jews would have been accused of. So now, the film ends with an epilogue tacked on by Smith, where Osmond completes his training and becomes an inquisitor, torturing and burning women accused of witchcraft. The end. So, the Inquisition that existed at the time the movie is set in existed to convert heretics, not kill witches. Again, wrong century. The witch trials happened like a century later. Torture was more a tool for extracting information, not confessions. As they acknowledged that, like, confessions under torture were generally not that valuable. The Inquisition depicted in the film has more in common with the Spanish Inquisition of the early modern period, or at least its black legend, i.e., the myth surrounding it. This is essentially propaganda used to turn the Inquisition into a symbol of religious cruelty, which is exactly what the film is about. So an old example of this black legend is a book authored by Spanish Protestants in 1567 that illustrated various different methods of torture employed by the Inquisition. You can see there's an illustration here with the various methods of torture, as well as burning in the middle, in the center. So now, in reality, the Spanish Inquisition understood that torture could produce false confessions, and it was used in less than 10% of interrogations. If you were accused of witchcraft, you would also have been better off in their hands, as they viewed such accusations as superstition, and were highly suspicious of their truthfulness. So now here I just have like some examples of other ways that this kind of medievalist view of the Inquisition manifests. So here is the most popular example Monty Python depicts the Spanish Inquisition as like murderous idiots, and then this is a 1986 movie based on a historical mystery novel by Umberto Eco, I think in 1980 is when it was published. Basically, it's a good example of how this kind of black legend, this medievalist view of the Spanish Inquisition, can bleed into depictions of even the medieval Inquisition, not the post or the early modern Inquisitions. So anyway, that's it. I didn't see anything uh, in the assignment about citing your sources, but I figured I might as well include this. My main resource for information is this book, Medieval Christianity: A New History by Kevin Madigan. It's where I got all the information about the anti-Semitic myths as well as the medieval Inquisition. For the Spanish Inquisition, there's this good lecture by I think Alec Riley. I think he talks about the he talks about the book here,
Tim's
and the black legend of the Spanish Inquisition toward the end of the video. So anyway, yeah, thank you for your patience, and that's it.